Young and the Restless. 5 game-changing character returns to blow up YandR, chaos incoming. Alright, let's get into it. The first return is tied to a recent death. Everybody misses Chance Chancellor, Connor Floyd. But he is unfortunately dead and gone, and does seem to be a final passing. And his mom, Nina Webster, Trisha Cast, is really missing her son. Chance was not her only son. I think it'd be kind of amazing if his brother, Ronan Malloy Jeff Branson, came back. His real name is Aiden Lansing, but when he was an undercover FBI agent, he was known as Ronan. And his origin story is wild. Nina Webster was just a teenager when she had Ronan. And in true soap style, Nina's son was stolen at birth and sold on the black market. But Ronan came back into Nina's life as an adult. Ronan had come and gone over the years. But now that Chance is gone for good, I think Nina would love to have her other son back, even if he just came back on one of her returns. More importantly, I actually think Ronan would fit in quite well into the Young and the Restless character canvas long-term, because he's a cop and right now we don't have any law enforcement in Genoa City. We have a couple of LA cops on YandR. They seem to be short-term hires. So, I'd like to see Ronan return. And he has ties to a lot of people in town. And he could absolutely fill the gap that was left by Chance. Theo Vanderway's return. A recipe for rivalry with Kyle Abbott. Another character that might be great to bring back is Theo Vanderway, Tyler Johnson. If you forgot him, he is Kyle Abbott, Michael Mueller's cousin. And Theo shares the same grandma as Kyle. They are both grandchildren of Dina Murdra and Marla Adams. This was a retcon, a character invented later. But Theo's dad was the half-brother to Jack Abbott, Peter Bergman, and Tracy Abbott, Beth Maitland, and Ashley Abbott, Eileen Davidson. He is not a half-brother of Billy's. Because Billy Abbott, Jason Thompson, was not an offspring from Dina's side of the family. Before Kyle knew about their family ties, he and Theo were party pals in New York City during one of the times when he was off-screen for quite a while. Kyle and Theo were hanging out in the Hamptons at the time that Kyle got Tara Locke, Elizabeth Liner, pregnant while she was still married to Ashland Locke, Robert Newman, and that's how he got his son Harrison Locke, Redding Munsell. Young and the Restless, Theo versus Kyle. Once Theo came to Genoa City, he and Kyle turned into rivals. There was a lot of jealousy there. Because Kyle had grown up with a silver spoon in his mouth and Theo did not. Because his tie to Dina and all that wealth and everything wasn't known. YandR could absolutely bring Theo back to torment Kyle, especially given their past. Theo is the type that would go after Claire Grace Newman, Haley Aaron, to mess with Kyle. And he's already dealing with Holden Novak, Nathan Owens, going after her. Theo also tangled with both Summer Newman, Allison Lanier, and Lola Rosales, Sasha Calle, who had been with Kyle as well. So, if Theo came back, I think things could get even messier for Kyle, which could be pretty interesting. Bring back Tucker McCall for comic relief and revenge. Now, the third character we need back on screen, at least for a while, is one of my favorites, Tucker McCall, Trevor St. John. Of course, he was recast. And Stephen Nichols was replaced by Trevor St. John. I love Stephen Nichols. But I really like Trevor St. John. The ex-husband of Ashley and the ex-boyfriend of Audra Charles, Zuleika Silver, was a boatload of fun. Tucker was quirky and funny, and he would bring comic relief to scenes. Because Trevor St. John was just always messing with stuff, and just doing strange things you don't always see actors doing on soaps. Plus, Audra would absolutely lose her mind if Tucker returned. Things had gotten pretty bad between Audra and Tucker. If you remember, Audra stole his company, Glissade, with Victor's help. I think it's fitting for Tucker to return. Because there's more about Audra and Holden's sketchy past to come out that ties into Tucker, and he owes Audra and Victor Newman, Eric Braden, both a little payback. So, I think that could be pretty interesting. And it's always nice when Devon's, Brighton James, dad shows up and tries to get back on his good side. Crazy Patty Williams, a wild comeback for Jack Abbott's ex. The fourth comeback that could be really wild is Patty Williams, Stacey Hayduke. Crazy Patty was always fun. She's the younger sister of Paul Williams, Doug Davidson. Back in the day, she was very sweet, very innocent. Patty fell head over heels in love with Jack Abbott. But he only married Patty to prove to his father, John Abbott Jerry Douglas, that he was mature and grown up and could be trusted for him to make him president of Jabot. Jack had an ongoing affair with Diane Jenkins, Susan Walters, back then who was a model, and that was going on while Jack was married to Patty. She actually walked in on Jack and Diane fooling around. It was really bad because at the time Patty was pregnant and she kind of ran out upset and she tripped and she miscarried. Then she found out Jack married her basically for business reasons, and Patty threatened to kill herself, but Jack said shoot me instead. So Patty did, and from there she turned into pretty much crazy Patty. She later shot Victor, I think 3 times, among a lot of other crimes that ended up with Patty sent to prison, and she was later institutionalized and sent to a facility for the criminally insane. Young and the Restless, Patty's history with Ian. She was also part of the storyline where Sharon Newman, Sharon Case, thought that Christian Newman, Alex Wilson, was her baby. Another reason it could be cool to bring back Patty is because she's got history with Ian Ward, Ray Wise. If you remember, she saved his life when he nearly died trying to burn down Newman Tower. That was years ago when he was conspiring with Adam Newman, Mark Grossman. With Ian still alive, maybe Patty could come back as his new partner in crime since Jordan Howard, Colleen Zenk, is dead. We all know Ian's not gone for good. Mariah Copeland, Cameron Grimes. S been getting inpatient psychiatric care and hallucinating Ian, which is a red flag. He'll return. Plus, Sharon's old villains keep coming back to torment her. So Ian might pop up now that everybody thinks that he's dead. Avery Clark's return. Will Phyllis's sister shake up Genoa City? All right, the 5th and final character I think it would be great for Young and the Restless to bring back is Avery Clark, Jessica Collins. Her name was originally Avery Summers. If you forgot her, she is the little sister of Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford. When she first came to town, Avery had a real chip on her shoulder. She resented Phyllis for leaving home as a teen when Avery was just little and Phyllis never looked back. Avery showed up in Genoa City as a big-shot successful lawyer from New York that Victor Newman had hired to represent Sharon when she was accused of murdering Sky Lockhart, Laura Stone. That was back in 2011. Phyllis was shocked to find out that Avery was her sister. But Phyllis wanted to kind of keep her past and present separate. Then their con man dad turned up. Phyllis was also really jealous of Avery's success and how well she'd done with her life, while Phyllis was kind of bouncing around and trying to cobble things together. Young and the Restless, the most obvious chaos magnet of them all, Adam Newman. Yes, Adam technically never stays gone for long, but this return feels different. Adam doesn't just walk back into Genoa City. He storms in with unfinished business, unresolved trauma, and a chip on his shoulder the size of Newman Enterprises. Why Adam's return is a game changer. Adam has always existed in that dangerous gray area between hero and villain. One minute he's fighting for redemption, the next he's torching relationships with surgical precision. His presence alone rattles Victor, destabilizes Nick, and completely messes with Sally's heart. If Adam comes back determined to reclaim power, whether at Newman Enterprises or Chancellor Winters, expect a Newman civil war to reignite, Victor pulling strings behind the scenes, Nick being forced to choose between loyalty and survival, Sally caught between old feelings and self-preservation. Adam doesn't just stir drama. He rewrites the board. And when he's playing to win, nobody is safe. 2. Kane Ashby, the wild card with a grudge. Now here's a return that could truly blindside everyone, Kane Ashby. Kane has deep roots in Genoa City, and he's been gone long enough for people to forget just how dangerous he can be when pushed. But don't let the charm fool you. Kane returns best when he's wounded, underestimated, and hungry for relevance. What makes Kane's comeback so explosive? Kane isn't just connected emotionally, he's connected corporately. His return could intersect with the ongoing power struggle at Chancellor, Billy Abbott's increasingly reckless decisions, Lily Winter's fragile balance between heart and ambition. If Kane comes back with receipts, proof of past betrayals or secret deals, it could destroy Lily's trust in key allies, expose corporate corruption, trigger a hostile takeover no one sees coming. Kane thrives in the cracks. And right now, Genoa City is full of them. 3. Phyllis Summers, because chaos is her love language. Okay, yes, Phyllis Summers technically never leaves forever. But when Phyllis returns fully unleashed, that's when the real fireworks begin. This wouldn't be a quiet comeback. This would be Phyllis re-entering the canvas with a mission, a vendetta, and absolutely nothing left to lose. Why Phyllis returning at full force is terrifying. Phyllis is at her most dangerous when she feels betrayed. And right now, she has plenty of reasons to feel that way. Daniel slipping out of her control. Billy spiraling in unpredictable directions. Victor playing chess while she's treated like a pawn. A fully activated Phyllis could expose secrets people assumed were buried. Align herself with an unlikely enemy, Victor? Adam, tear apart families under the guise of truth. Phyllis doesn't just reveal secrets. She weaponizes them. And if she decides Genoa City deserves to burn, she'll light the match with a smile. 4. Tucker McCall, the puppet master returns. If Adam brings chaos and Phyllis brings fire, Tucker McCall brings strategy. Tucker's return would be subtle at first. Quiet meetings, back-channel deals, a few well-placed comments that slowly unravel everything. Why Tucker is so dangerous? Tucker doesn't need to shout. He doesn't need to threaten. He simply exploits emotional vulnerabilities, manipulates business rivalries, turns family members against each other. His return could directly impact Devin's sense of identity and control, Audra's loyalty and ambition, Chancellor Winter's fragile foundation. And here's the kicker. Tucker never plays just one game. He plays 3 at once. If he comes back with a long-term agenda, it could mean a shocking corporate betrayal, a romantic manipulation that blows up a couple, a secret alliance that changes everything. When Tucker's around, the truth becomes optional, and loyalty becomes a liability. 5. Sheila Carter. Yes, that Sheila. Absolute nuclear option. And now, for the return that would send shockwaves far beyond Genoa City. Sheila Carter. You already feel it, don't you? Flushed face. Even the rumor of Sheila's return is enough to make longtime fans sit straight up. Sheila isn't just a villain. She's a walking disaster with a history of obsession, manipulation, and straight-up terror. Why Sheila's return would blow up YandR instantly. Sheila doesn't return unless she has an obsession to pursue, a family connection to exploit, a score to settle. If Sheila crosses paths with Lauren Fenmore, Michael Baldwin, any vulnerable child or fractured family, it's game over. Her presence would instantly raise the stakes from corporate drama to survival, unite enemies against a common threat, trigger long-buried trauma for multiple characters. Sheila doesn't just cause chaos, she redefines it. And once she's back, there's no clean exit. Only fallout. The domino effect. Why these returns change everything. Here's what makes these 5 returns truly game-changing. They don't exist in isolation. Adam's return destabilizes the Newmans. Kane's return disrupts Chancellor. Phyllis fuels emotional destruction. Tucker manipulates the board. Sheila nukes whatever's left standing. Together, they create a perfect storm where alliances shift weekly, couples implode overnight, power changes hands without warning. This is the kind of storytelling YandR does best. Slow burns that erupt into explosive echoes of forgotten laughter as the Mariners' table came into view. An old seaside cafe perched on the edge of Bayport Harbor, windows gleaming like sunlit sails. For years, this place had been Theo Vanderway's kingdom, the crucible where his culinary genius rose, fell, and burned in equal measure. And now he was returning, like a storm no one saw coming, ready to shake the shores of his old world. Theo stepped off the creaking pier with confident strides, his sea-sprayed boots marking a rhythm against the weathered wood. It had been 5 years, 5 long years since he walked out of Mariner's table amid scandal and whispers. 5 years since he ignited the bitter rivalry with his former protégé, Lucien Reynaud, who had taken the restaurant from dying embers to dazzling heights in Theo's absence. Bayport hadn't forgotten him. The locals spoke his name in hushed tones. Theo's return. Whispers carried like cocktail aromas, tales of brilliance and infamy, of tempers boiled over like abandoned pots on forgotten stoves. Theo didn't need the rumors. He carried their heat with him, wrapped like an old chef's knife at his hip. He paused at the glass door of the Mariners' table, polished now, modernized with sleek metal and lights that pulsed like an eager heartbeat. The faded wood sign he once hand-painted had been replaced. But inside, Theo knew the kitchen still breathed. It had its own soul. And tonight, that soul would tremble once more. The bell chimed, a familiar note that twisted Theo's stomach into knots and butterflies. The dining room was full of faces he once knew, eyes that flicked up with recognition and quickly masked curiosity for decorum's sake. Waitstaff moved like vessels of elegance, uniforms crisp, guilty of professionalism that only recoiled deep respect for Lucien's meticulous leadership. Theo's gaze skimmed the room, stopping when caught by a particularly sharp set of eyes. Mira Kessel, the maitre d', whose calm composure had become the restaurant's anchor. She didn't blink away. Instead, she walked toward him with that same poised step that once made him call her the eye of the storm. "You look well," she said, voice as cool and inviting as jasmine tea on summer nights. "And you look sharp," Theo replied, adjusting the collar of his faded jacket. "Still running a tight ship." "We run excellence," she corrected, and under her tone, Theo heard a challenge. measured, graceful, but not kind. Before he could respond, a wave of applause rippled through the dining room. Lucien stood at the head of the room, tall, luminous, the public face of the restaurant's renaissance. His grin was too bright, his posture too confident, and yet there was a flicker of something in his eyes when he saw Theo. Surprise? Or fear? Ladies and gentlemen, Lucien's voice carried the warm resonance of a man who belonged here. Tonight, we honor our legacy and celebrate what makes Mariner's Table a home for remarkable culinary experiences. Applause followed. Theo felt heat rise to his cheeks, not the warmth of nostalgia, but the flare of rivalry, that fierce aroma no kitchen could suppress. Lucien's gaze landed fully on him now. And we have a special guest with us this evening, he continued, eyes gleaming like a chef presenting a prized dish. A visionary who left to chase horizons and has returned to remind us what true passion looks like. The room turned its attention to Theo, smiles eager and curious. Some faces held admiration, others polite caution, but every stare carried the same question. Why are you back? Theo stepped forward. The wooden floor softened under his boots, yet each step felt heavy. I'm back, he said, voice steady, because some recipes weren't finished. Some flames still burn. And there's a truth we must taste together. Lucien's smile didn't falter, but his stance stiffened, a blade unsheathed, precise and deliberate. That's quite the statement, Lucien replied, voice calm as sea glass. Perhaps you should prove it, through a cook-off. A murmur spread through the room, like hot steam from a simmering pot. A competition? Theo repeated, peering at him. No, a duel. Lucien laughed softly. A duel then. The challenge. By midnight, Mariner's Table was transformed into an arena of gourmet ambition. 2 stations faced one another in the kitchen, separated by an aisle that looked like a battlefield. Flames danced in pans. Knives gleamed. Ingredients lay like soldiers, herbs, seafood, citrus, spices, all poised for the clash. Mira stood between them as judge and guardian of fairness. You have 4 hours. Create a signature dish inspired by the sea. The judges, myself, 2 local critics, and our guests will vote. May the best chef prevail. Theo looked at Lucien, memories rushing like tides over rocky shorelines. Long nights seasoning broth, early mornings filleting fish, laughter and arguments that tasted like salt and wine. But this wasn't about old times. This was about proving something still raw beneath his ribs. Lucien gave a slight nod. May your best be worthy. The first timer beeped, slicing through the tension like a blade. Chatter vanished. It was just the sound of ambition and knives sharpening dreams. The cook. Theo worked with fervor, his hands moving like history itself, every chop, stir, and sear laden with years of yearning and unspoken battles. He chose scallops kissed by lemon zest, a sauce that whispered of roasted garlic and age-old wine, and microgreens for texture, fresh, alive, like the second chance he sought. Lucien crafted a dish of artful precision. Sea base nestled upon a mosaic of roasted fennel, capers for brightness, an herb foam whispering sweetness like sea foam on midnight beaches. Hours folded into themselves, flame and fragrance unraveling a duel of wills. The kitchen pulsed with intensity only true rivalry can create. Heartbeats syncing with sizzling pots, sweat beating like pearls of devotion to craft. When time was called, the judges moved through the kitchen, tasting, nodding, weighing each plate like it carried world history. The verdict. In the dining room, silence deepened. A hush that felt like winter tide washing over collective breath. Mira stood between Theo and Lucien, envelopes in hand. For creativity and spirit, she said. The winner is. She paused, eyes glancing between them. 2 rivals born of the same flame. Theo Vanderway. Gasps filled the room. Theo didn't smile. Instead, his eyes found Lucien's, and in that moment something shifted. Not forgiveness, but recognition. A respect that only true rivalry, tested under flame and saltwater winds, can forge. Lucien stepped forward, offering a hand, steady, unguarded. Well done, he said. Theo took it, feeling the grip like heat and honor. They stood there, chefs of sea and fire, understanding that rivalry wasn't the poison they feared, but the catalyst that made each dish and each dream burn brighter. Epilogue. Days after the cook-off, Mariner's Table saw queues around the harbor under the rising sun. Old patrons returned, curious about Theo's dish that had captured hearts. New faces came seeking stories of the chef whose return sparked legend. Theo and Lucien didn't become best friends overnight. Rivalries aren't extinguished that easily, but they found balance. 2 forces anchored to the same legacy, crafting dishes that honored sea and flame alike. Guests discovered menus that danced between their styles. A symphony of brilliance, some rivalries burn hot and fast, flaring up in a blaze of betrayal before fizzing out. Others? They smolder for years, waiting for the perfect gust of scandal to explode all over again. And when it comes to unfinished business, Theo Vanderway and Kyle Abbott are the definition of a ticking time bomb. Just when Kyle thought Theo was ancient history, another bad chapter from his reckless New York days, fate, and YandR writers who love chaos, had other plans. Because Theo never forgets. And he never forgives. The ghost from Kyle's past. Kyle Abbott has spent years trying to rewrite his narrative. He's no longer the entitled trust fund screw-up bouncing between cities and women. He's a father. A businessman. A man desperate to prove he deserves the Abbott name. Not just the perks. But Theo knows the truth Kyle hates most. Theo remembers the lies. The manipulation. The way Kyle used charm like a weapon and tossed people aside when they stopped being useful. When Theo re-emerged in Genoa City, it wasn't coincidence, it was calculated. And Kyle felt it instantly, that chill creeping up his spine, the one that whispered, "You're not as clean as you pretend to be." Theo didn't come back for closure. He came back for leverage. Smiles that hide knives. On the surface, Theo plays the role perfectly. Easy grin, self-deprecating humor, the lovable underdog with a rough past. But behind closed doors, the mask slips. Theo watches Kyle with hawk-like precision, cataloging every misstep, every crack in his polished Abbott armor. And Kyle senses it. Their interactions are layered with tension. Polite smiles stretched too thin, conversations laced with subtext only they understand. Every time Theo calls Kyle cousin, it feels like a taunt. A reminder that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty, and certainly doesn't erase history. Kyle tells himself Theo isn't a threat anymore. That's his first mistake. The Abbott name is the battlefield. Theo knows the one thing Kyle values more than money or power: belonging. Kyle has always felt like an outsider in his own family, forever trying to earn Jack's respect rather than simply inherit it. Theo exploits that insecurity with surgical precision. A casual comment here. A planted doubt there. A subtle reminder that Kyle's success came with advantages Theo never had. And the worst part? Theo isn't wrong. When whispers begin circulating at Jabot, questions about Kyle's leadership, rumors about past scandals ready to resurface, Kyle knows exactly where they're coming from. Theo doesn't need to destroy Kyle outright. He just needs to let Kyle destroy himself trying to stay ahead. Fatherhood raises the stakes. Harrison changes everything. Kyle isn't just fighting for his reputation anymore. He's fighting for his son's future. And Theo knows it. Every threat feels sharper now. Every potential scandal more dangerous. One wrong move could cost Kyle custody, credibility, or both. Theo watches Kyle spiral, torn between playing defense and striking first. And Theo? He thrives in the chaos. For him, this isn't just revenge, it's validation. Proof that the Golden Abbott boy isn't so untouchable after all. But what Theo doesn't expect is how far Kyle is willing to go when backed into a corner. Kyle strikes back. Kyle Abbott may pretend he's evolved, but desperation has a way of resurrecting old instincts. He starts digging into Theo's finances, his business dealings, the shadows of his past that even Theo prefers to keep buried. The hunter becomes the hunted. Suddenly, Theo feels the pressure shift. Kyle isn't just reacting anymore, he's calculating. And Kyle has something Theo doesn't: resources, allies, and a family empire willing to protect its own. Jack senses the tension. He sees the war brewing in Kyle's eyes and fears the son is becoming the man he once was, the one who made mistakes that haunted him for decades. But Kyle doesn't care. This time he's not going to lose. The explosive confrontation. When Theo and Kyle finally face off, alone, no witnesses, no masks, it's brutal in its honesty. Years of resentment spill out in raw accusations. Theo calls Kyle entitled. Kyle calls Theo bitter. Both hit where it hurts most. Theo accuses Kyle of stealing a life that was never his to begin with. Kyle fires back that Theo's obsession is the very thing holding him back. For a moment, it looks like it could turn physical. But the real damage is psychological. They know each other too well. They know exactly where to aim. And when they walk away, neither man is the same. No winners, only fallout. The tragedy of Theo versus Kyle isn't that one will win and the other will lose. It's that both already have. Theo proves his point. Kyle is flawed, vulnerable, capable of unraveling. Kyle proves his. Theo can't move forward because he's too busy reliving the past. And Genoa City? It's left to deal with the wreckage. Because secrets don't stay buried forever. And in the Abbott family, history always repeats itself. Your average villain, just with new He's not growling threats in dark corners or monologuing about power. His danger is quieter and way more fun. He disarms people with humor, lulls them into underestimating him, then casually pulls the rug out from under their entire lives. That's the magic. YandR has plenty of schemers, but almost none who are entertaining while doing it. Tucker brings comic relief without being a joke. He's clever, sarcastic, emotionally complicated, and just self-aware enough to know how ridiculous the elite of Genoa City truly are. And right now, the canvas is begging for him. The perfect return, Tucker comes back with a smile and a score to set. Picture this. Tucker McCall strolls back into town like he never left, tailored suit, smug grin, espresso in hand. He tells everyone he's back for closure or business opportunities. No drama. No threats. Everyone relaxes. That's when the fun begins. Because Tucker isn't back to beg forgiveness. He's back because he remembers everything. Every betrayal, every lie, every moment someone thought they outplayed him. Victor dismissed him. Ashley tried to control him. Devin chose blood over brains and shut him out. Tucker doesn't want revenge in the loud, obvious way. He wants elegant revenge. The kind where people don't even realize they've lost until they're standing in the ruins. Comic relief done right. Tucker versus Genoa City's ego problem. Let's talk comedy, because Tucker's humor is surgical. Put him in a room with Victor Newman and watch the sparks fly. Not because Tucker challenges Victor's power, but because he challenges his ego. Tucker doesn't fear Victor. He mocks him just enough to make Victor bristle, then steps back and lets Victor self-destruct. Give Tucker scenes with Jack Abbott, and suddenly Abbott humility gets tested. Tucker calling out Jack's moral grandstanding, politely with a grin, would be comedy gold. And don't even get started on Tucker watching Phyllis spiral. He wouldn't intervene. He'd sit back, sip his drink, and offer commentary like it's live theater. That's the brilliance. He doesn't yell. He observes, and that makes him lethal. Ashley Abbott, the love story that never truly died. If Tucker comes back without Ashley in his orbit, what are we even doing? Their relationship is messy, volatile, and emotionally charged in a way YandR rarely commits to anymore. Ashley never quite knew whether Tucker loved her or was using her, and Tucker never corrected that assumption. But here's the twist, he actually does love her. In his own warped, damaged, deeply complicated way. A return arc where Tucker genuinely tries to win Ashley back, while still plotting revenge against those who hurt him, creates an impossible tension. Ashley wouldn't trust him, but she wouldn't be able to resist him either. Every scene would crackle with history, regret, and unfinished business. And Tucker? He'd be just self-aware enough to admit, yes, I'm terrible, but I was never boring. Devin, the inheritance, and the ultimate payback. Devin shutting Tucker out remains one of the deepest wounds, and the best fuel for a comeback story. Tucker wouldn't storm in demanding forgiveness. He'd do something far worse. He'd succeed without Devin. New ventures, quiet investments, strategic alliances that slowly weaken Devin's position while strengthening Tucker's. And when Devin finally realizes what's happening, Tucker's response would be devastatingly calm. I offered you a seat at the table. You chose the moral high ground. How's the view? That's revenge done right. No violence. No shouting. Just consequences. Tucker as the wild card Genoa City can't control. What makes Tucker essential is that no one can fully predict him. He's not loyal to families, legacies, or traditions. He's loyal to himself, and occasionally to love when it sneaks up on him. That makes him the ultimate wild card in a town obsessed with power structures. Victor has rules. Jack has principles. Devin has guilt. Tucker has freedom. And freedom is dangerous.